So I've been a Muslim for almost 3 months now. My journey going into Islam, it wasn't something that I had really researched or done a lot of research probably in the years prior. Growing up myself, I didn't have any religion and wasn't raised with a religion. However, just growing up in the community that I did and just family friends, I was exposed to Christianity naturally. And so growing up, even though my family wasn't particularly religious, there was this one concept of God, and that's all I knew growing up. And it was the only thing that I really knew. And I would always go to church with like family friends, neighbors and such, but my immediate family, we would never go. So even growing up, I always felt that I didn't necessarily belong in church and amongst those people. Not that I had a bad experience, it just wasn't something that, it was like an innate feeling, something that I didn't really feel comfortable with. And so growing up, I just became very comfortable. You could almost even say ignorant in the idea of that there was nothing out there. There was, no God. I was comfortable having no religion at all. And that's just because of what I was raised with. And it wasn't until probably about a year ago is when the question even first popped up into my head. And I did have Muslim influences growing up. My best friend was Muslim, but I had never asked her questions. I had never explored more. It was just, this is her life, this is my life. But a year ago, I started to question the thought of, what is our purpose? Why are we even here? Am I here for something greater? And so the questions just started to develop. And then over time, I just dived more into the fact that this is not just all there is. This life is very temporary. There has to be something more. And again, Christianity never really resonated with me. And so then I just started to, go online. I started to ask the questions to someone I felt comfortable with, which was my best friend at the time. And so I just started to ask these questions here and there over the course of a year, but not really, taking that action, that step. And so I would read and I would just, explore as much about Islam as I could. Not everything made sense at the time, because I was very, very new, just, learning something or reading something for the first time. And then fast forward a year later, most recently is when it was like a feeling like I had to do something. I had to take action. I had to, not just do a simple Google search or, open a book. Like I wanted to actually talk to someone who might have, of course, like more knowledge than I. And so that's when I was just talking to my friend, and she suggested, well, why don't we email, a bunch of Islamic centers or masjids and see if they're willing to, answer your questions, because these are some questions that you've been having for a long time, and there's a reason because of that. And she even said to me, Chelsea, I think your soul is searching for something. And I think that's what really resonated with me, because I could never really put it into words until she had said that. And then it was very masjid, almost as if, Allah had a plan for us all, because when we did send out the emails, this masjid in particular, Huraira Centre, was not only 5 minutes away from my house. So, what a coincidence, right? And so we came here and then met with Brother Zubair. We answered some questions that I did have at the time. And I think if I'm being honest with myself, that night that I had come to the masjid, I probably would have taken my shahada. After watching the sisters pray, that is what really inspired me, but also it was as if everything came together. I not only had my questions answered, but watching the sisters pray really just made everything come together for me, and it really solidified all of my beliefs. And it's something that clicked for me. Islam made a lot of sense, and it clicked, and it felt very natural. So when people ask me, how did you feel? It was very natural. That's the words that come out of my mouth. That's like the first thing that pops into my head. But I was very apprehensive about taking my shahada that same night, just because of all of the backlash I may face, and a million questions popped into my head, and what would my family think? What would my friends think? And so I believe it was a couple of weeks I actually pushed it, thinking I'll do it after, or I'll wait till, I have more knowledge, or I'll wait till I'm more, perfect in a sense. Before I can do this, I need to have, a clear head, and I just want to do it. I want to do it for me. And so I think it was just after just a lot of my own doubts and apprehensiveness, and I just really had to have a conversation with God and also just have a conversation with myself. And I didn't tell anyone actually when I actually did my shahada, we did the virtual session. I didn't tell anybody, not because I wanted any bad feedback, but I also didn't want any good feedback. I didn't want anyone to say, yes, you should do it, or no, you should do it. And of course, the encouragement is always welcomed, but I wanted it to be my decision and my words with God alone. I needed it to be just him and I when I make that decision, not my best friend's opinion, even though it would have been great, not anybody else's opinion. And so I didn't tell anybody. And then when I did take my shahada virtually, it was very overwhelming in a really good sense. It was probably, and to this day, I still think probably one of the best decisions that I've made. And so yeah, that's my journey leading up to converting. So it was really, really an interesting journey. And of course, there's still adjustments that have to be made. But yeah, that's so far where I'm at in my journey.
So what would you say to someone who maybe, they have started looking, they have started searching, right? What could some of the apprehensions be in terms of when they're thinking to come in? I know some of the conversations we had was, does it mean that once I am in, I have to do everything right away? Or any other hesitations that people may have from your experience, and how would you recommend them to look at that?
I think the first thing would be to keep that open mind, because there's going to be a lot of outside factors that's going to prevent you from even taking that next step, even thinking about it. So definitely keep an open mind. But I think the main thing, what I have found, not only for myself, but other people who have thought about converting, is family. A lot of the times you come from a strong Christian household, or maybe your family's not religious at all. So I think family for sure, because our family is the only thing that we know, right? And of course we love our family. And so to bring to them this idea about either switching a religion or, or converting, it's something that it's not easy. A lot of the times it can be very scary, because you have to face, will my family not only look at me differently, but unfortunately for some, they have to worry about, will my family even, keep speaking to me, or maybe they want to kick me out the house. And it's very sad, but a lot of people, they do think about that before deciding to convert. But I think it's just important to understand the why rather than the what. And even just talking to somebody, because I know that when we do our research, we could be pointed into 1,000 different directions. So keeping that open mind and looking for someone with reliable information, whether that's scholars or even, a close family or friend that is Muslim, even just talking to them. I think another apprehensive, or why people might be apprehensive, is because we think of, or Islam is painted as this religion with lots of restrictions. And that is something that before anything else that we read about, or that we, before prayer, before anything like that we even think about, we think about the restrictions. A lot of non-Muslims have this idea in their head, this religion has a lot of restrictions, and I can't do this and I can't do that. And of course, that's just what society has painted, right? So we go with what a lot of people have said, what society says. And so automatically we think, this isn't for me, rather than thinking, why? There's a reason for everything, and that is something that I love about Islam, is that it's not that, you can't eat food that's not halal. It's why do you choose to eat food that's halal? Why do you choose to pray 5 times a day? Why do we wear the hijab? There's always an answer to these quote unquote restrictions that Islam has. And they're not more restrictions. I think that if you start to look at it that way, then you find yourself in this weird parallel where it's okay, I can't do this, but I'm used to doing that. And then of course that's where the apprehensiveness comes in. But just do a little bit more research and keep that open mind. They're not so much as restrictions, but more so commandments from God. And I think when you change your mindset and you look at it that way, so many things will open for you, so many doors will open for you, and a new way of thinking as well. So I think the restrictions that society has painted for Islam and also family would definitely be the two major reasons why a lot of non-Muslims are apprehensive about converting.